He's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom. I'll keep my guns. Try to keep my money and my religion too.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
I'm going to keep my big VA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need. We know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest will be VK Durham today. I know her as Grandma. Hello, Grandma. Are you with me?
Oh, I am, but I don't see you anywhere.
Dear, what you have to do is cut your cameras off. All we want to do on Skype is just the voice. And I'm not on Skype on the camera because I'm doing camera over on Blog TV. So, but I can hear you and you're coming in all right.
Okay, good.
All right, and let me. I got a article in from John Kaminsky, and I kind of want to do that to kind of set the stage for some of the things we're talking about.
How is John, by the way?
John is doing fine. He'll be on my show in a couple of days, and he always puts out some real interesting things. He pulls no punches about the Jewish control of our banking and our film media and all that. But he just sent me an article that said how 4-year-olds could save the world in a way that adults never could. and Grandma, I mean, I just put an email out about you the other day. We just lost Bob Chapman because people, his partners, his business people, the partners who were the supposedly in charge of his health, supposedly helping him, supposedly trying to tell him he was cured of cancer, and they killed him. They let him die. And I said that's been happening to a lot of people, and you happen to be one of them.
Yes, and there's a commonality involved here. A commonality involving an individual who's with Financial West Group, the CEO of Financial West Group out of California, and he's also the owner-operator of Aspen Manor, and his name is Gene Valentine. And Gene Valentine was contributing now this is per Gene Valentine, $25,000 a month to Bob Chapman. $25,000 a month to Lyndon LaRouche. Then he's supporting Al Hodges, one of the White Hats. So it makes me wonder about this worming your way in. And doing political contributions to judges and politicals, such as Gene Valentine, and he brags about that, how he controls the courts and he controls the political body here in West Virginia. And he seemingly has an awful lot of influence with Jamie Dimon and Timmy Gaitner and Dan Hughes and Junior, who allegedly was one of my husband's men, who was allegedly the golden boy of the Contra affairs. And, you know, there seems to be an awful lot of Gene Valentine involvement in all of this. And Gene Valentine has alleged to everybody that he has full control over the Durham Trust and the sub-trust and the corporate officers and the trust officers. Well, I've got news for you. Gene Valentine has control over nothing.
And let's see, what kind of, Grandma, just let me interrupt you for a second here. What kind of proof do we have that he even knows Timothy Geithner? I mean, here's somebody setting up, trying to paint themselves out as having more influence and more money than they really do. Evidently, he had a little bit to play with because he tried to suck you in to get control of the Durham Trust. Now, how much is supposedly, if the Federal Reserve wasn't controlling things, if the Federal Reserve wasn't a criminal organization, how much would this trust that you own or that you control be worth to the American people?
Well, as it was calculated by the Central Intelligence Actuarial Services and the West Coast Federal Reserve in 19, I think it was 89, 88, or 89, it was over $206 trillion in gold coin, gold bullion, etc., and or coin is around. But see, that increases on the interest is at 7% semi-annually on that, on the contract, which is compounding and recompounding and recompounding and going into orbit, you know. So actually, altogether, it's on the principal, it's accumulating at a rate of 144% per annum, and on the interest is 144% per annum at this time. So you can just imagine what the original actuarial services amount has ballooned out to, which I think is obscene. But apparently, Jamie Dimon didn't think so. Let's see, when they tried to...
Wait a minute, who is Jamie Dimon? Let's give us some background.
Well, Jamie was, you do remember Citigroup.
Yes.
Well, back in the early 2000, Jamie Dimon was belonged with the Citigroup, and he was tightly associated with the LaSalle Group in the banking group in Chicago, and which tied in with Bank of America, Bank One, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, Jamie Dimon, there was a bank called Bank One down in Monroe, Louisiana, and I happened to have a trust account there. And I was talking to the account manager one day, and we were talking about Bank One getting ready to go into receivership. And I said, we have this UCC1 that we can use to pull Bank One out and keep it from going into Citigroup's receivership. And I said, but the trust is going to have controlling interest. Well, that was okay. Bring the instruments down was a call that we got, I think it was the next day or the following day after that. And so Vernice Winchell and Jackie Winchell, the secretary of the trust and the corporation, we drove down to Monroe, Louisiana, and deposited our certificate of deposit into Bank One. And that's the last we ever saw of it. Jamie Dimon quickly rises up. Bank One immediately becomes one of the most powerful banks. Jamie Dimon moves from Bank One over to J.P. Morgan, takes the collateral with him, and then they access the trust account that is in Bank One, and they just keep on flying. In 2000, and let's see, that was in 2000, I forget, I posted it. So in 2004, Jamie Dimon and his J.P. Morgan, they reached back into history and incorporate the old financial house of Hobson and Hurtado that was authorized to issue out that and go for sale on that certificate of indebtedness May 1st, 1875. Well, as you can see, unwanted intelligence, Paul unwanted intelligence has done an awful lot of research on those old certificates. And those old certificates have all been canceled or paid, with the exception of mine. And where mine says has its number, identifying number, the other ones have void. And mine still has its number. The certificate of indebtedness, and we have the contract, which gives us the right to mortgage the mineral rights and of Peru until this thing is paid. Well, Jamie Dimon Incorporated, he reached all the way back, did a whole lot of ex post factoing to bring that old defunct courthouse, financial house of Peru, under the control of J.P. Morgan Chase in 2004, December. It was December the 8th. I'm not certain about the date. But anyway, Paul has, over at Unwanted Intelligence, Unwanted Publicity Intelligence, has researched the stuff backwards and forwards. He had, unfortunately, Paul didn't have the proper instruments to relate to, because he didn't have my instruments. He was, when he was quoting the terms of those old contracts, the terms of the contracts that Paul is relating to are the contracts that went into receivership in the 1899 receivership, which put all of the guano-bearing islands under a receivership and for a period of 60 years. And so those are the guano debts and contracts between 1860 and 1872. Well, ours was a bit different. Ours was 1875, where there was a special legislative annex, or like a congressional act of Congress, that went and put together the duly constituted, and it was authorized by the Constitution, but they had to go back and resurrect the Constitution of 1862 to have the constitutional authority to enter into this debt, which was sold in New York on May 1st, 1875, which we own, the trust owns. The contract itself and the certificate was won by my great-grandfather in a poker game on a Mississippi gambling boat from New Orleans to St. Louis. The pot was $5,000 gold coin, and he won it. And that's how we got a hold of it in the family. But Jamie Dimon has tried his damnedest to get control over that. Now, and so has Timmy Gaitner. If you remember, they sent the boys out from the White House to pay me $40 billion if I would underwrite those two $120 billion increments put out by George Bush, Greenspan, Clinton, Brady, and all that, Nicholas Brady, James Brady, all that in 1991, which brought the banks down. And that's part of the Brady bonds failures. Well, all of that stuff has started coming due. They wanted to give me $40 billion if I would underwrite those original two, which they couldn't They took them out on their own. George Bush authorized James Brady III, James Baker III, to allow Brady and Greenspan to issue out this stuff that's terrorizing everybody at this point. That's what caused Argentina to go down, and all those countries that have gone down over those Brady bombs. They could never prove the source, Clay. They've never proved the source. But it's the same thing with the stuff that's causing the euro to crash right now. They can't prove the source. In other words, in proving the source, they have to have the signature of the owner of record to give them the authority or to write them an instrument which allows these prime bank financial instruments to go out and be sold. And J.P. Morgan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, none of them have done it. Not even Lil Wanta. And I think Lil Wanta, I love talking to him. He's very, very informative. But they haven't been able to, without my signature. And that's all this trouble has gone on up at the Basel Bank of International Settlements. And that's why Greece went down. That's why Italy, France, Germany, all of them are having their problems. That's why the Queen of England is in this puppy up to her neck. They don't have my signature. And when I told the representatives of Tim Gaitner in the White House, friends of Van Hughes, D.D. Hughes Jr., associate of Gene Valentine, when they came to the House and wanted me to underwrite that, and they would give me those two 120. But for that, they'd give me $40 billion in gold. I said, fine, I'll take the $40 billion in gold, but it's got to be core drilled and assayed and recertified. It's got to be in a bank of my choice. Fine, fine. They take off, get with Citigroup, and we go to China, and they start trying to core drill and assay all of that, and they find out they had nothing but gold-plated tungsten. And you remember what a ruckus that caused. Well, then Dan Hughes, he decided he was going to access, he had access to my trustees and my corporate officers. And because he was allegedly a friend of my husband's. So he and Gene Valentine hot-footed out to Iowa to get with my trustees and my officers of my trusts and corporations so that they could get control over those accounts, the lead accounts of Russell's on the CI Ltd accounts, which is the Contra accounts of the Iranian Contra and the Latin American Contras, which contained allegedly per Russell $17.5 trillion in gold bullion. Well, Clay, they got out there, and they promised to pay off Jackie's debts, and they promised to pay off all the debts. Well, I doubt if those have been paid. Because what they did, they put a conservatorship, and pretending Jackie was nuts and unable to take care of her business, in which they were trying on me up here at Aspen Minor, too. Gene was trying this on me. We've got emails to that effect where he contacted the Department of Health and Human Services. They were going to do get a psychological evaluation on me. Well, they have tried, they have only embarrassed themselves. They've temporarily inconvenienced me. And, yes. Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
I'm on radio. I'm on the radio. So anyway, what they have done they tried to access those accounts. Thank you. They tried to access those contra accounts, which Russell had. Russell was a pretty smart man. Let's face it, he wouldn't have had the position that he had he not been a very smart man. But he set those accounts up, Clay, to where they were iris and voice fingerprint recognition, plus there had to be a set of numbers that would be the fourth one that would activate those accounts. Well, you know, with Russell being dead and buried, well, they couldn't access the fingerprints, the iris, and the voice. And I had the numbers. And this just really threw him in a tizzy because J.P. Morgan couldn't, and Tim Gaitner, at that point, they couldn't fulfill that obligation for J.P. Morgan.
Right. Grandma, let me stop you for a moment here, because you know you're tossing around some pretty heavy names. Names people see in the papers all the time, and you've pretty much done that your whole life. You've been around with the Kennedys. You played with the Kennedys' children. You've been operating in the high levels, you know, with your husband's involvement with the CIA, the Iran-Contra. The CIA came down on me, or the intelligence agencies and the ADL and Southern Poverty Law came down on me and the Free American, you know, because I blew the whistle on George Bush's drug running operation, CIA Mossad drug running operation called Operation Watchtower. And this was all happening at the same time, and we're talking about billions of dollars changing hands, presidents giving away billions of dollars, Federal Reserve not saying where the money that they printed went to, and you have a financial stake in this, and yet you've got people moving you in, wanting to give you a place to stay, to rent you a place to stay, to take care of you, so they can somehow get access to you or to this trust. But as far as the trust,
right there, because you haven't filled that space in. My secretary, Jacqueline Winchell, and her sons, Mark and Don, were having some financial problems. And what brought us the financial problems on was there was another brother whose name was Vern Winchell. And Vern Winchell was having some prostate problems. And of course, you know, I went through that prostate cancer bit with Russell. And I know what all it takes. Well, Jackie, she was concerned about her son. Naturally, that's a mother's right, you know. And instead of making her payments on the farm, as everyone thought she was doing, she was helping to support her son's financial needs for his prostate problems. Well, she missed a couple of payments on the farms, and she darn near lost the farm. So this is what gave Danby Hughes and Jean Valentine the leg in. They moved in, and they were going to financially assist. But before they moved in on her, Jean promised me that he had an attorney who could get my back Social Security disability, which had been due since '83, and my records had all been wiped. I'd showed up deceased in the records. He could also get my federal widow's benefits for my husband, Colonel Herman, who had done 2 successive 20-year terms of service in the U.S. Armed Forces, Land and Naval. He also said it would only take about 3 months. He also committed to me $5 million for the book and the movie rights on Russell Herman, and another $5 million on me for my life story, etc. And I was to bring my furnishings, some furnishings and clothing and computers up here to Wellsburg to be comfortable while all of this was taking place. In the meantime, I was to receive proper medical care to get my health back, which my health was in bad shape. And I figured that, and I said to Jean, Jean, if we can get this done in 3 months, then I can come back to Iowa and I can help Jackie and the boys out with their financial problems. Oh yeah, it shouldn't take us any more than 3 months because I have substantial political contributions in West Virginia, plus I contribute to many of the judges. Well, that's a violation between you and me of 18201. But anyway, I was assured that I would be paid and I could recover what I needed to go back and help Jackie. And in the meantime, and the catalyst of all of this, what brought all this about, was when I had gone to Europe, there were some very strange things that happened with Gene Valentine. He didn't do what he agreed to do.
Okay, now let me stop for just a second here.
Okay.
Did you have this?
Let me say, what kicked Gene Valentine off was the fact that I found out in January and February that he was a little light in his shoes. He liked men too. And so I committed to marrying an individual. And that's what really pissed Gene off. So now he couldn't have VK Durham, so he went after Raylan Allen. Okay? And I will tell you this. Women of my age, we're used to men. We're not used, and we're used to men that are not light in their shoes. Now, I don't think that any of the men that I've known, or any of the Central Intelligence men that I still know, any of the men at Treasury, at Justice Department, I don't think that those men are men over at U.S. Marshals. I don't think that any of those men would tolerate a ferry, an ACDC, someone who would set them up and blackmail them in their group. Okay?
Well, I was talking with Gordon Duff, who's been high up in the CIA and the military and, fought in a few wars, runs Veterans Today, and I asked him that, why aren't these people in high up places, why aren't these people in the Pentagon, why aren't they doing something? Why aren't they arresting the bankers? Instead, we're concentrating on arresting people because they got a little bit of coke, or they got a little bit of heroin, or they got a little bit of marijuana, or they got the wrong pill. We're putting those people in jail and putting more Americans in jail than any other country. And we're not putting any bankers in jail. Somebody has basically confiscated and stolen billions of dollars from you, possibly more than that. They've kept you from being able to access it because they're trying to deteriorate your health, aren't they? They're trying to remove you as an obstacle to their being able to access these funds. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, and Gene thought that he could cause me to have a high blood pressure stroke because my blood pressure was running 220 over 120. And the doctor, Dr. Cipolleti here in Wellsburg, he says, well, I can't imagine why your blood pressure is so high. And I said, it's seeing Valentine.
Well, do they do that now? Now, let me sorry for it.
Let me finish while I'm